You don't tell your parents everything. Not because you don't love them, not because they failed you, but because with friends, something feels safer. You can talk without thinking too much. You can laugh in ways that feel natural. You can admit fears, secrets, and strange thoughts without feeling like you're being studied. At home, it feels different. Even when your parents are kind, something in your body tightens. You feel watched, evaluated, interpreted. Every sentence feels like it might turn into advice, concern, or correction. So you choose silence, or you choose your friends, and sometimes you wonder why. Why does home, the place that raised you, sometimes feel harder to open up in than a group of teenagers who barely know your history? The answer is not simple, but it is deeply human. During adolescence, your brain is undergoing one of the most intense rewiring processes of your entire life. Neuroscientists often call it a second birth of the self. The brain regions responsible for identity, social awareness, and emotional processing are being remodeled. It's not just about mood swings or rebellion, it's about a shift in where your mind locates safety and belonging. When you were younger, your parents were your entire world. They were your source of food, protection, comfort, and meaning. Your brain's attachment system wired them as safety itself. But as you grow, your brain starts preparing you to leave the nest. It needs you to form bonds outside the family. It needs you to learn how to belong to a group, how to cooperate, how to navigate social hierarchies. So it slowly turns up the volume on peers. The brain's social reward circuits become more responsive to friends. Approval from peers releases dopamine. Laughter with friends feels intoxicating. Rejection from friends hurts more than rejection from parents. This is not because your parents matter less. It is because your brain is training you to survive in the world beyond them. Friends feel like equals. Parents feel like authority. And authority changes how your brain behaves. When someone has power over your future, your rules, your consequences, your mind becomes cautious. Your nervous system detects evaluation. The amygdala, the brain's threat detector, becomes more active. You filter yourself. You edit your words. You hide certain thoughts. With friends, the power dynamic feels flatter. They cannot ground you, punish you, or control your life in the same way. So your brain relaxes. It's like speaking in a classroom versus speaking with classmates after school. In one space, you are performing. In the other, you are existing. Over time, this difference shapes who you feel allowed to be. At home, you might be quieter, more obedient, more guarded. With friends, you might be louder, more expressive, more honest. This is called contextual identity shifting. It's the brain's way of adapting personality to environment. But there is another layer. Parents often see themselves as protectors and teachers. Their instinct is to guide, fix, advise. When you express confusion, sadness, or uncertainty, they often respond with solutions. To them, this is love. To your teenage brain, it can feel like being corrected for existing. So you learn that vulnerability at home leads to intervention, while vulnerability with friends leads to shared emotion. Your brain starts labeling one environment as emotionally risky, and the other is emotionally safe. This doesn't mean your parents are dangerous. It means your brain is predicting outcomes. And the teenage brain is a prediction machine. Every time you speak, your mind calculates the emotional cost. Will this lead to judgment? Will this lead to misunderstanding? Will this lead to control? With friends, the predicted cost feels lower, so you open up. This is why you might tell a friend about a crush, but not your parents. Why you share mental health struggles with peers, but hide them at home. Why you confess mistakes to friends, but edit the story for family. It's not betrayal, it's survival logic written into your nervous system. But here's something few people talk about. When you feel safer with friends than family, your identity can start to split. You become two versions of yourself. One version that belongs to home, another version that belongs to the outside world. The outside version often feels more real because it is less filtered. The home version can feel smaller, quieter, less alive. Over time, this split can create a quiet loneliness. You are surrounded by family, but not fully seen. You are fully seen by friends, but they are not your foundation. The brain likes integration. It wants one coherent self, but adolescence naturally creates fragments. And this fragmentation can follow you into adulthood. If you learn that authority equals emotional risk, you might later hide from bosses, partners, or mentors. If you learn that intimacy equals evaluation, you might avoid opening up in close relationships. So understanding this pattern now matters. Not to blame anyone, but to become aware. Your brain is doing something logical. It is shifting attachment from parents to peers as part of becoming independent. Think of it like a bridge being built. One side is family, the other side is the outside world. During adolescence, you walk toward the other side, but the bridge still needs both ends to stay standing. Friends give you freedom. Family gives you roots. The danger is not feeling safer with friends. The danger is losing the bridge entirely. So what can you do with this knowledge? First, notice where you feel emotionally safe and where you feel emotionally evaluated. This awareness activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that regulates emotional reactions. When you label a feeling, you reduce its intensity. You might realize that your parents' questions feel invasive, not because they are invasive, but because your brain is primed to see authority as a threat. Second, separate intent from impact. Your parents might intend connection, but their words might feel like control. Reframing intent changes how your brain interprets the signal. The threat system quiets. Third, practice low-stakes sharing. You don't have to confess your deepest secrets. Share neutral pieces of yourself. A song you like, a thought you had, a random story from school. This retrains your brain's prediction system. If sharing leads to neutral or positive outcomes, your brain updates its model of safety. Fourth, keep your peer connections, but don't abandon family emotionally. The brain is designed for multiple attachment figures. Diversified emotional support increases resilience. Fifth, notice identity splitting. Ask yourself who you are at home and who you are with friends. Which parts are masks? Which parts are authentic? Self-awareness integrates identity networks in the brain. It reduces fragmentation and increases psychological coherence. None of this requires confrontation. It requires observation. Feeling safer with friends is not a betrayal of family. It is a sign of development. Your brain is learning autonomy. It is practicing independence. It is preparing you for a world where parents are not always there. But independence does not require emotional disconnection. Sometimes the people who struggle to understand you the most are the ones who spent years learning how to keep you alive. They learn to protect, not to interpret feelings. They learn to fix problems, not to sit inside them. Your friends are learning alongside you. Your parents learned long ago. So there is a language gap, not a love gap. One day you may look back and realize that your parents' questions were clumsy attempts at closeness, and your friends' understanding was shared confusion, not deep wisdom. It requires observation. A thought you had. A random story from school. This retrains your brain's prediction system. If sharing leads to neutral or positive outcomes, your brain updates its model of safety. Fourth, keep your peer connections, but don't abandon family emotionally. The brain is designed for multiple attachment figures. Diversified emotional support increases resilience. Fifth, notice identity splitting. Ask yourself who you are at home and who you are with friends. Which parts are masks? Which parts are authentic? Self-awareness integrates identity networks in the brain. It reduces fragmentation and increases psychological coherence. None of this requires confrontation. Feeling safer with friends is not a betrayal of family. It is a sign of development. Your brain is learning autonomy. It is practicing independence. It is preparing you for a world where parents are not always there. But independence does not require emotional disconnection. Sometimes the people who struggle to understand you the most are the ones who spent years learning how to keep you alive. They learned to protect, not to interpret feelings. They learned to fix problems, not to sit inside them. Your friends are learning alongside you. Your parents learned long ago. So there is a language gap, not a love gap. One day, you may look back and realize that your parents' questions were clumsy attempts at closeness, and your friends' understanding was shared confusion, not deep wisdom.